Because the meeting URLs are static, once I create a meeting, it exists and I can use it over and over again. I'll often find myself using them for multiple purposes. For example, I use my meeting room as a place to show off techniques to customers, but then I may also have a meeting with my manager to go over my sales numbers. And if that's the case, I probably don't want to let people come into the room. Now, I can go into a room and change the access that people are granted into the room. For example, I can select Meeting, Manage Meeting Information, come into this meeting, choose Edit Information, scroll down, and set it up so that only registered users may enter the room. But that's actually kind of cumbersome. I might be in the moment or on the fly and I might need to change it. So a lot of times for a generic meeting room, I'll allow anyone who has the URL to enter the room. But then from within the meeting, I'm actually going to manage access. So first off, let's go ahead and save this. So now technically anyone who has the URL can come into the room. However, when it's time to sit down with my manager, Olivia, and go over my sales numbers, I want to make sure that no one else can accidentally toddle into the room. So what I'm going to do is select Meeting, Manage Access and Entry, Block Guest Access. Now, the only people who are going to be able to come into this room are people who have a username and password on the system. If I want to continue that, I'm going to select Meeting, Manage Access and Entry, Block Incoming Attendees of all sorts. What that's going to do is that's going to prevent anyone else from coming into the room during this time. Now, I can allow people to request entry because perhaps Olivia's boss wants to sit in on the meeting, so I want to make sure to allow him or her. I can do that. Let me go ahead and cancel this. But another way to use this is I'll go ahead and stop blocking guest access. I am, however, going to block incoming attendees and allow only people who request entry into the room and select OK. Now, Kirk wants to join this meeting, and there's my little warning that I'm doing that. Kirk's going to go ahead and try to join the room, and I want you to see what it looks like when someone attempts to access the room, and the room is going to go ahead and request permission. Now, Kirk is being asked if he'd like to request entry, so he's going to go ahead and say yes. And there we go. The room is telling me that Kirk would like to enter the room. In fact, if I have a variety of people or a large number of people trying to do this, I can just allow everyone in one fell swoop, or even deny everyone. In this case, though, I'm going to go ahead and allow Kirk into the room, and he can join the meeting. Now, this is a great way if you have a meeting set up and you know who you'd like to have in the room, but you're afraid other people might get wind of it and try to attend, you can set this up and every person has to request entry to come into the room. Now, this is also a great place to remind people if they use something silly for their name when they're trying to access the room as a guest, like Bingo the Clown or Guest or something like that, you can just simply deny them because you want to make sure that you're only allowing the correct people into the room. Now, to take this a step further, it's not uncommon during a meeting for the people in the meeting to need to take a quick stretch or take a step out or even compose themselves and bring some information into the meeting room. If you don't want to expose that to everybody in the room, what you can do is select Meeting, Manage Access and Entry, Place Participants on Hold. What that will do is it will basically kick everyone out of the meeting, and they'll see a screen that basically says, "We're on hold." Once you're done with that process, then you can go ahead and start the meeting. And then they'll jump right back into the meeting room and continue on as if nothing had happened. It's important to remember, though, that these things only apply to participants. Presenters and hosts, because it's expected that they're to be in the room and to set the room up and everything else, those people aren't going to be put on hold like everyone else will. And then finally, once the meeting is done, it's a good idea not to leave your meeting room open. Remember, this room is set up so that anyone who knows the URL can toddle on into it. You might have some chat in there that's private. You might have a set of slides in there that are company confidential, whatever. So when your meeting is done, it's a good idea to select Meeting, End Meeting. And when you do that, there'll be a message sent out to all of the participants that says that the meeting is over. Thank you for attending. You can, of course, customize this if you want. And if you want to send everybody to a particular URL, maybe to the company's internal website or something like that, you can even include that into the mix. Once you click OK, this is exactly what everyone's going to see, except for the Start Meeting button. The reason the Start Meeting button is there is because once you end a meeting, that meeting is going to stay in this state until you, the host, comes back in and starts it again. So it's a good idea if you're going to start a meeting and you've been ending your meetings, which is a best practice, to jump into your meeting 20 minutes or 15 minutes early and make sure that you click on the Start Meeting button, because otherwise, if you don't do this, people who come to the new meeting will see that the meeting has ended and they'll be confused thinking, oh my goodness, did I miss the meeting or whatever. So this level of access gives you a great set of tools for managing the way that people can interact with and attend your meeting without necessarily having to create user accounts as a way to do so. It's a lot more flexible, and it gives you the capability of truly running the meeting in the fashion that you need to.